Morning, guys. We'll try this again. Sorry, somebody came to the door and I had to answer it. Okay, so today we're talking about flower essences. There are two common types, I guess, one more so than the other. They work on behavioral issues, and I'm going to go through the list at the end of the issues they can help with, and they're not limited to those either. So the first type is Bach flower essences. They were created by a physician from Europe who was dissatisfied by his fellow physicians when they didn't believe that emotional issues can cause physical issues and vice versa. So naturally, he stormed off to the countryside with one of his, I think it's either a maid or a servant, I'm not sure, and bought a cottage in the woods and started collecting flowers to see what their medicinal properties were. And that's what the case looks like this. The ones by Healing Herbs are the authentic ones. There's another company that replicates them but doesn't follow the same process, so the energetics are much lower or lower vibration than these ones. So my mom and I like to use these ones. She makes essences for people, mostly children, and I make them for animals. So we get to share, which is nice. The bottles look like this, and essentially you just put a couple drops on your tongue in the morning and at night, or if it's conditional or for certain situations, then you do it slightly before or during that experience. So there are a lot more essences for people than there are for animals, but there's I'm just going to show you what the little bottles look like. This one's Mimulus. It's a very, very common one for animals, and essentially each different plant has its own bottle, and the process takes the essence of the plant and the medicinal properties the same way. In the olden days, they used to use plants as medicine. This is the same idea, but they're not using the physical part, they're using the essence. So that's what they look like. Essentially, they're dilute infusions of tree buds and flowers. So anything that can be found in nature or in a forest is typically what's in these. They do have some even I've never heard of, and I know quite a bit about nature. But the idea behind them is that if you improve he was a doctor, so his patient, their mental state, you would positively influence their physical state, which we know in modern medicine. A lot of times they just prescribe drugs and hope that fixes the problem. But we, in holistic medicine, think more along the lines of, is there something underlying that's actually causing the physical issue? Is there a behavioral problem? Is your chronic anxiety stressing out your liver and it can't detoxify the body properly or something like that? They replace the negative trait, so for example anxiety, with a state of calmness, which is a positive virtue. And by replacing them in the animal's mind, so for example for Kaya, I used it when I took her to the vet when she was a puppy for her puppy shots and her space surgery, and I gave it to her when we got in the car. It's not a long ride there, but by the time we got there, she was very relaxed, so she started to attribute that state of calmness with that place. So now when we go there, she's very relaxed. And it works well for thunderstorms. Bach is actually the one that makes this little beauty, the Rescue Remedy. I know I've talked about this a lot of times, but it's excellent for immediate calming. So if you have a dog that doesn't do well when you have people over, is afraid of thunderstorms, doesn't like car rides, anything like that, give it to them about 2 minutes before the people come over. You put them in the car and they'll do so much better. It doesn't taste like anything, which makes it easier because some can be very picky. You can use it for cats, you can use it for birds. I mean, it's very diverse that way. The other type of flower essences, this one's a little heavier, are called FES, Flower Essence Services. Didn't come up with a very unique name there, but that's okay. These ones just essentially allow, the boxes look like this, a wider variety of things that you can work on. So I have 2 separate books, and I use my mom's book to flip through to choose the essences when I'm making one for your animal. So essentially we do a consult on the phone. I figure out what we seem to believe the problem is, and then I'll go through the book. I have 1 for horses, 1 for dogs, 1 for cats, and 2 for animals, and then the people one, but in the animal section. These ones, the bottles look similar. This is Black Eyed Susan. And they have pictures of the flower on the front, so sometimes that helps if you can't remember what it's called. But there's so many things you can help with this, and I'm going to pull up the list that I have on my website. Aggression, fear, and that can be non-specific fear, so just in general, terrorized all the time, or specific fear, say men in hats, fire hydrants, whatever it may be. Depression, lack of confidence, separation anxiety, hyperactivity, concentration issues. So if you're doing obedience training or agility or dock diving and your dog's not paying attention, or your horse isn't paying attention when you're going into the ring or watching other people jump, then this is a good focus for them. Especially helpful for emotional issues during or after a traumatic experience. So I was in a car accident last August. I can't believe it's almost been a year already. But I gave myself rescue remedy as soon as I got home. I didn't have any on me, but my whole body was so tense that I couldn't, obviously I had whiplash from the car accident, but I couldn't lift my shoulder to here because the muscle was so tight, but my emotional state was very tense. So I couldn't relax. I couldn't sleep that night either. But it helped to bring down my emotional state so I could breathe and recoup a little better. But things like thunderstorms, car rides, aggressive encounters with another animal, which actually did happen to Kai in the forest. I think I've told this story before. 2 white mastiffs came shooting out of the bush around the corner and charged and started circling her. Owner was, of course, nowhere to be seen. And naturally, I jumped between her and the dogs, but I started yelling for the owner, and luckily he came up. But since for about a month or 2 after that, she was really skeptical about dogs that approach her that quickly and doesn't like when dogs approach her face to face, or big white dogs. But we worked on her. I used rescue remedy for that when we got home, and it seemed to really help her. Loss of another pet in the family. That can be a really big thing because a lot of times we're so enveloped in our own grief that we don't think about how our pet feels about it, especially if it's a multi-pet household. If a kid goes off to college and the animal spent a lot of time with them before they left, that kind of thing. If you lose your pet, they can be a really amazing tool to help you get over that. Or not get over it, but work through it. We never really get over it all the way. Injuries, so if they fell, say, down the stairs and they're in shock, it's a good way to bring them down as you take them to the vet because they will probably need medical intervention at that point. And post-surgery. Post-surgery, they can be really unsettled. They're not quite sure what's going on, that kind of thing. You have to keep them calm so they don't injure the incision site or things like that. That works really well. The best part about, or not the best, but one of the good parts about it is that it can be done over the phone. So I can do a consult with you over the phone and actually mail the essence to you. So this one, it doesn't matter how far away you live. There's some, I've had people all the way out in London and further who want in-person consult, and unfortunately I can't always drive that far because it takes up half a day or more to do one, and I wish I could see everybody, but flower essences, if it's a behavioral issue, is a really, really good tool. In Canada, they're actually listed as a food supplement, which is really amazing because in the States, they're under the umbrella of homeopathics. So that gives us more access to them, which is really amazing. But I took these when I was in university because I was constantly stressed out, not getting enough sleep, not always eating well, and it helped shut my mind down at night so that I could sleep better and then have more time to eat, that kind of thing. But it worked really well for me. It worked really well for Kaya. We used it on her when she was a puppy because she was very mouthy as a puppy. And she's not anymore. She does still jump up once in a while, but otherwise she's a very good girl. That's all I have to say about flower essences. If you have any other questions, feel free to shoot me a message. I'll see you next Tuesday, and I don't remember what we're talking about, but I'm sure it'll be exciting.